Hello, everyone. Welcome to another 3D Total interview. Today we have an amazing and talented artist, Simone Ferreiro, also known as Simz. Simz is a digital artist whose artwork has a watercolor-like feel to them. I describe his work as whimsical meets everyday life, and it has a way of capturing the viewer to its calm, very fantastical nature. And let me not forget, lots and lots of cats. Today, we're here to talk about Simone's new book with 3D Total. So thank you so much, Simone.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for this interview. My name is Simone. I'm an illustrator and comic book artist based in Italy. I draw since I was a kid. I also stream on Twitch, and so my entire career it's been developed around social media, and also like streaming. So I make video of my work. So I'm like a freelance artist, completely oriented on internet basically. And yeah, that's what I do.
No, it's great. I mean, the internet is such a powerful tool. Almost everyone now has, built in somewhere, some form, built themselves through the internet. Lots of artists get reached out to from the internet. Lots of artists have their portfolio on the internet, and social media is such a powerful tool to help you build a very engaging and supportive following, and just to put your work out there. So today we're here to talk about your new book, but before we get to that, obviously you didn't just wake up and all of a sudden you're a professional artist, right? You definitely started off somewhere. Can you tell us a bit about your journey to becoming the artist that you are today?
Oh yeah, sure. It's pretty straightforward. When I was a kid, my dad is an architect. So when I was a kid, I always had paper, pencils, and tools to draw around me. So I started drawing pretty early. And then I kept drawing through school, and people always liked me drawing, and I guess that's where I developed the feeling that drawing was a good positive thing to do for creating was a way to communicate for me. I didn't instantly went through, I didn't instantly pursue my art career. I had a buffer of 3 years of engineering at college, but I didn't do great. So I decided at some point I was kind of a kid when I started. I was 17 when I finished my high school. And I made 3 years. So between 17 and 20, I realized that I matured, and I realized that I wanted to pursue my art career. And I went to college, Accademia di Belle Arti, which is Fine Art Academy in here where I live in Naples, where I studied new media art though. That is not properly illustration, but oriented me toward art. At that point, when I finished, I had a more classic art, let's say, structure. I learned art history, a little bit of philosophy and graphic design as well, photography, and not specifically illustration, but I kept illustrating through the years of studying at the art school. And when I got out, I went back basically. I started working at some odd jobs. I made graphic designer for a video game company for a bit. I did different things. I also made the photography in clubs and stuff like that. I made a bunch of different artistic oriented things. But then finally, I went back to the thing that I always did, basically through the whole process, which was drawing. And I decided to start my art career. Of course, with the help of what I got through my odd jobs, and also my family helped me. I managed to kickstart around 25, 26, and dedicate on building up my audience and trying to reach as much as possible through through social media. I really focused on social media a lot, and I was like, this is gonna be the reason, the way, right? I can get paid. There was Patreon, there was YouTube, I'm not great on YouTube, but the point is that I saw that there were a lot of opportunities. I pointed on Twitch, for example, where I streamed for 5 years. Right now I'm partnered, and for example, on Instagram. I pushed all the social media. After 2-3 years, things started to grow. I developed a personal style more and more. And yeah, and stuff started to snowball, let's say, like now, it keeps going, because the more bigger wave you manage to get, the bigger wave you get, more, people start noticing you, and then so on and on and on. And if you stay on the piece, let's say you continue working, it keeps getting a little bit better, little by little.
Yeah, exactly. I love your story. I love how you really like dabbled in different areas of art just to finally come back to like the roots and like just get back to illustration. It's like, you know what, this is really what I want to do. And I really loved hearing how you said you focused on social media. There are lots of different like strategies to becoming an artist out there. And very early on, some people were like confused about social media. They were trying to go through other ways, but you really doubled down on social media and it's really paying off. I wanted to ask, what are some of your inspirations when you were growing that made you like believe that this was possible?
Actually, one thing that I must say, I try to not follow too many artists. And just yesterday I was talking about this. I try to stay as naive as possible, because if I get too much into anything, I feel like it starts to affect me. Because I get kind of swamped into, what is possible, what is not possible, and you start seeing how complicated. Like if you see how complicated, if you look at a great painter, you realize how hard it is to be a great artist. Or pretty much in every job, it's the same, right? If you look at the best at anything, you're like, okay, it's impossible. So I tended to not focus too much on what others do. Of course, I looked at others, looking at, for example, look at this person has a lot of likes, or like, their art is great, but they're not very followed. Why? I try to figure out a bit. But overall, I tended to, I guess, thanks to also the art school that I made, that teach me basically to bring a artistic journey to the audience. And so when I started working on social media, what I focused was try to find a voice, right? That's been pretty much I tried to find a place, or a signature, so to speak. And so when I started, I think something that did the trick was starting on smaller communities, where there was actually a chance for me to, thanks to a personal skill, or like trying to make contents that appealing for an audience. On small communities, I could test if my contents were, buzzing a little bit. Because trying on Instagram from scratch, even I could not probably right away. If I started from scratch right now, probably would be hard to grow again.
Very difficult, yeah.
Yeah. So the point is, on a small community instead, I could at least try to see if what I did was viral worth. Like if I had the chance, the ability, the skill to make something that was worth going big, right? And so I got a bunch of experience also on that, on small apps and stuff like that, where I managed to actually become pretty popular, or at least not popular, but, gain traction, where on big social media, when I started, I noticed that it was impossible, because that literally was shooting in the void, right? While on small communities, I managed to see that things work. And when I figured out what was working, I brought it back on the larger social media, and a little bit also trying to bring people that maybe followed me on the smaller ones on the bigger ones. It's been very hard. But once I had contents that I was sure that were good and they worked decently for a smaller audience, I was aware that probably also on bigger scale would have worked. It was just the problem was bringing the contents to them at the time. And so that's been the hardest part. Basically, I used Reddit, Imgur, all those websites that allow you to not necessarily like you can go viral not necessarily being popular already. So you post the content can blow up even if you just start today. From there, people start, I did it multiple times, so people started to noticing my work, and then I get some following, and then it scales up until I started growing, and then I got more opportunities, and yeah.
It's such a well thought of strategy. Like, so that's honestly so cool. But I was gonna say, obviously, even when you do all that, for those listening, you still have to have some decent art skills, right? It's not just about like posting your work. Your work has to be nice. That's the way you gain, that's the way you go viral, right? That's the way you gain followers. So you're clearly working on your skills while doing all that as well. So let's talk about some of your art inspirations. I can tell there's a lot of cats in your artwork. Is that like any symbolism? Would you want to talk about that? What are some of your inspirations when creating art?
Okay, so yeah, for sure, art skills is something that I developed as in a parallel way with my growth on social media. The theme of cats is relatively new. I mean, it's been 3 years. I started being old. So I feel like when I think I just started, it's been 3 years probably that I'm working on witches and cats and stuff like that. And everything started, I mean, I want to cut it super short. But basically I was working for Webtoon. It's a website that publish web comics, webtoons, and I was publishing a comic at the time. It's been 2-3 years ago. That was completely not involving cats, completely not involving witches, different style. But at the time that I was publishing that project, my social media were completely around that project. When I was published, what happened was that I couldn't really publish too much about the project that I was working on because I was the rights and stuff were being bought by Webtoons. I signed contracts and stuff like that. So I tried to basically do work on the comic and my stuff, and then develop a side project, something that I could do in my free time. And so I started drawing. And I have a bad memory, but basically what happened is that I started drawing a lot of people, portraits. And then I got commissions at the time, of couples. Now, couples has been a theme that I had for a long time in terms of two people. And that's how my comic on Webtoon was based on. I had this duo. But the point is that couples usually were in cozy environments. Now, cozy environments brought me to the comic that I made, but point is that when the comic didn't allow me to publish any more contents relative to that comic, I started working on cozy environments, and as a subject, instead of a couple, I started using witches. Now, witches, I kept doing a lot of drawings of witches, and stuff like that. And I tried to make cozy environments and different things and explore this aesthetic with watercolors. I wanted a more rugged, how do you say, lived in...
Texture?
Yeah, textured, right? Like lived in, kind of like magical paper, old papers. You know what I mean? Candles, traditional Wiccan. A little bit like it takes a little bit from old magic tradition, not specifically from one. It's just like from
just the general aesthetic, right?
Exactly. And one day, I found like a reference of this woman sitting reading on stairs. And there's still on my social media that picture. I think it's called Stairs or something like that. Or no, I can't remember. Reading on Stairs or something. My title are I have to work on my title. But the point is, there was this woman, witch, reading. And at the end of the drawing, there was just a witch drawing on stairs. And I was like, I need to add magic. I want to add magic. So I made the streaks of light coming from the book. And streaks of light ended up being ghostly figures because it was white lines on top of the picture, like literally doodled on top of the picture. And those lines became cats. And then I came up with, cat figures. And I filled the picture with cat figures. And at that point, I was like, cool. And I published. And the picture went pretty well. And people was like, oh, Ghost Guides. At that point, I was like, I made other drawings and stuff like that. But then I was like, wait a second. That was actually a good idea. And the reaction was pretty good. So I was like, let's continue. And then I kept exploring the idea, exploring, and making a lot of pictures until the project kind of like started to have a very clear signature. And now I'm working also on a comic. So like things are going pretty well, I think. And that's how the idea came up. Inspirations, I think they come from anime, of course. I don't watch a lot of anime, but I watch some Miyazaki movies, of course, but also like Pixar movies a lot. I love that. And cinematography as well. A little bit of sci-fi, and that's why you probably mentioned already. There's always like you see laptops, phones. I like this sci-fi aesthetic with wires and this kind of steampunk aesthetic, kind of. I don't know how to. It's arcane punk, I think it's called. It's like this mix of modern technology and magic that goes like kind of like back to back. And this is also the comic that I'm trying to develop is based on this, and the illustrations have those vibes. And so like, let's say the project, it's bubbling up automatically because I have to come up with new ideas, of course, but at the same time, I want to explore some of the concept and be like, okay, but what happens if I do this? How can I make this more, and having fun, basically trying to, try to find, something that becomes more and more unique, specific, well thought out, and it's also pretty natural as long as I continue, because some decisions are kind of obvious at some point. It becomes quite like obvious, the passage. It's like for every IP, once you set up the world, it comes natural for me to come up with the next idea, because it seems obvious, kind of like what's gonna be the perfect match in that situation. So for example, I use magic, so the ghost cats are related to magic. Some of the ideas are kind of like
intertwining.
They make sense because it is in the context already. And a lot of artists also inspired me, of course. I look up to many artists, of course, many also that are published by 3D Total. And that's what made me extremely proud, of course, of the achievement of being published by a publisher that worked with some of the artists that I always look up to, and I still admire their work.
I love world building too. So hearing you talk about that is like, whoa, that sounds so exciting. I totally get everything about like the connections and whatnot. And it's also really cool to see how like, a very symbolic part of your art came up from you trying to like just, play around with it. And then it just kind of like, woof. It's always cool to just find like all those like things that you really didn't expect to like, you didn't really think of it, right? But it just naturally came to you. And I think that's where you see the beauty in art the most, when you just like try to express it without really thinking too much about it. That's where lots of like ideas blossom from. Okay, so let's move on to the book right now, right? What can we expect from the book? Tutorials, maybe like what chapters are in the book? What can we expect from the book?
In the book, okay, first off, I want to say that it's been a good experience thanks to actually the team. I worked with Ree, and like she's been awesome helping me. I sent the vocals and stuff like that. Yeah, it's been very, very a great streamlined process. In the book, I put there is a tutorial that, by the way, is the cover. I tried to make sure that the tutorial is it basically shows the process that brought me to create the cover, and I think that was what I wanted to do that because I think that I needed some, of course, original work for the book. That it's important always to have original work, and I thought that what is better than the cover of a book as a tutorial, so you can see how to make the cover of a published book or hopefully published book. I don't know. Wait, cancel it.
It's fine. This is published.
So in the moment it gets published, people see the cover of a book, how to make that cover, and I think that's the most for me it would be the most inspiring thing to see, because like if you want to learn how to make, or at least have a glimpse of how an artist makes a cover for a published book, like no, if you want to see how an artist make an illustration professionally, what's better of an illustration for the cover of a book that is printed?
Specifically for covers, I
Yeah,
understand. Yeah.
which is the most probably important part of a book, in terms of the first thing that people see and makes you want to buy the book many times. I think it was pretty important, so people could have a real clear idea of like how an important illustration, because I could have made, for example, opposed to making a simple design and just show a little bit of my process on a random picture, a cover is particularly important in my opinion, and it gives a clear cut on what is gonna be the aesthetic of a book, and for extension of a project in general, right? So yeah, that's the type of tutorial that's why I decided to go for that tutorial. And inside the book of I worked on there is a little bit of my story, of course, some suggestions and recommendations on like personal ideas on how to do this profession, basically. And I think it's particularly interesting. It would have been interesting for me probably to read some of the conclusion I came up with after the fact, that after, let's say, getting a little bit more attention. So that's what I tried to do. Yeah, that's it.
That's cool. That sounds exciting. And of course, there's a lot of arts, of course.
Of course, there is all my illustrations. Yeah, the majority of my favorite. I tried to collect all the best that I made, all the best illustrations, some new art, and I'm pretty happy also of the extra contents that we made for the book, like all the tote bags, stickers. That stuff is awesome. I think it looks very cute, and if there's out there is, I know for sure, being in this community for a while, people that likes that, and it's the first time. That's another fun fact. I got, I think, thousands of comments through my career of people asking me, where is an art book, when you're gonna make an art book, when you publish an art book, are you gonna make an art, bruh, like like this is literally when the 3D Total contacted me, I was like, okay, it's time. So like I'm gonna put everything people asked me, so I tried to put every possible thing to make a book that is interesting to read and cute, cool, with nice merch around it. So I tried to pack all together.
Art really looks like it could be like held, because sometimes, nowadays people just consume art on social media or digitally, and to be honest, it's not really the best way to consume art. Like in the back then, people would go into galleries and display their work so everyone could come and look up close. It's always so nice to have a copy of an artist's work and like kind of like have a book that has a collection to flip through. I think, it's gonna really have I think you're gonna feel the emotions a lot more. So I'm sure, like you mentioned, lots of people have been excited to get that book. So I'm sure now that the book is finally coming, everyone's gonna be so glad and really like want to get your hands on it. So
I hope so.
definitely.
I absolutely think that I already had an experience with 3D Total, and in the past printing my comic when I was on other projects. So yeah, when you print, it brings, it's not necessarily better, but it adds a different flavor, I think,
does, yeah.
which is definitely something that it's very valuable. And I really believe that everyone that is gonna get the book, I'm sure that if they like my art, I assume they do like my art. I think that it adds something, because you can see, it brings it closer. It makes it more real, let's say less volatile. And yeah, I really think it adds value. And also in general, it's a little bit like video games, right? You can buy the physical copy of a video game, and sometimes, for example, my brother is a collector, and he buys physical copies because sometimes it's nice to have the object as well, right?
Yes,
With the
exactly.
collection that you can
It
hold
makes it feel
and check.
tangible
Yeah,
and
it's a
like
little
just
bit like a staple, right?
exactly.
Something, yeah.
Exactly. I totally agree. I collect art books. Before working with 3D Total, I collected a bunch of their art books. I supported their Kickstarter. It was always just like I was so passionate about funding them and like supporting the artists, supporting the business. I think they put in so much love and care into the books, and I think it really shows. And I'm very sure it's not going to be any different from your book. So I'm really excited for it. So now I want to ask you, what are you most excited for in the book? Or what did you have the most fun working on? Or what do you think, oh, I can't wait for people to see this? Like, I can't wait for, maybe, is it a particular chapter, maybe a particular artwork that you made for the book? Or what are you most excited for?
Okay, there are a bunch of things that I'm excited. Okay, first off, I would say the cover. It's
Oh,
I paid a lot of attention on the cover. Two, there is a jacket, a cover jacket
oh,
that is particular, and if it turns out being like I planned, basically it's a cutout. So basically there's the cover of the book, and when you put the jacket on, you see the back, the cover, and the drawing change with the cutout, with the part that you see.
oh,
Yeah, right.
wow.
One, two, in the book, and again on this one, I I I at this moment that we are talking, I don't know exactly what is gonna be the extent, but the quality of the pages, it's gonna be different in some sections of the book in terms of materials. And for example, for the tutorial part, I wanted to make a use transparent paper so you could see the layers of, since I work in digital,
Oh my gosh,
so you can
wow.
flip. Yeah, that's an
Yeah, so you
idea
can
that I
kind of like
had.
see it as layers. Oh my god, that sounds so exciting. I'm sorry for interrupting you right now, but that
That
sounds
sounds
so
so
exciting.
exciting.
Like,
Yeah, I wanted to pay attention to these details because I think this I owe to my school. Because when I was at school, as an art school, we did a lot of these crazy projects that probably people is like, what is this crazy project? Why you do this stuff? This makes nonsense. Like, why you make a book like that? But now it was perfect, because I was like, oh, you know what, we could be more creative on this. And so I tried to add a little bit of extra flavor to create also an experience a little bit in the book. At least I tried. That's what I tried. And also, last but not least, again, the add-ons, like there is a washi tape and stuff like that. It's actually the first time that I do some of that, and because I don't have a personal merch store. I sell prints and stuff like that through Redbubble and other websites, but I don't have a personal merch store like many other artists have, like where they sell, like Etsy, that they sell washi tape or giclée prints, and all this type of. I don't. And this is the first time, so I paid a little bit of attention. Stickers, I made all these things that I really hope that it's gonna give that final. I think that altogether the package is gonna be pretty interesting.
everything you mentioned just sounds so exciting. I am a book nerd as well. So, like, saying you paid attention to the little details, and I love the way you use the word, you wanted to make it an experience. Oh, that was perfect because I always feel like reading a book or flipping through a book is an experience, right? It's like a whole journey. You get all these emotions, and even art books, like just looking at the artwork, diving in. I love it when books pay attention to the little details that makes you just dive into the book a lot more.
In some of my drawings, especially in the comic, I am going with not horror, but a little bit thriller slash like oniric, how do you call it, like dreamy, like
Yeah, like surreal and yeah.
nightmarish type of aesthetic in some parts, because I, you know, magic, in the series that I'm working on is a little bit also in the obscure side sometimes, right? It's not always in the bright side.
No,
It's not all.
definitely.
There is
Definitely.
there is a there are a lot of type of magics first off, and hey, I'm also like getting informed on, of course, like um, magic, and so I'm creating this project in the most serious possible way for me. So I'm buying books about magic and history. This is a book in Italian called History of Magic, for example, and
Ooh.
I'm trying to learn, so I can describe better. So my illustrations, the one that are in the book, for example, are based on also like research that I try to make. So I try to to
Submerge
put.
them.
Yeah, because like when I started, that's the point that I'm trying to make, is that this is a project. In the book, there are a majority of pictures are about my most recent, of course, illustrations that I'm doing 2-3 years. It's most recent, but the point is, it's also in development. So like probably the reader that are gonna read about the book, they're gonna notice that when I started, it was more generic, and then it started to become more and more specific. And yeah, I'm doing research through books and stuff like that, trying to learn and add more depth to both the illustrations and in the future the comic. So yeah, I think that in this book there is also a journey of, if people see let's say the timeline, and they see when every illustration is being published, the evolution of a project, which I think is an important lesson of the book. The fact that for me, the projects are very important. Like working on a project, doesn't matter what project, just working on a project, and put time and effort in it. And I think in the book, that's what it could be seen with, and it's described for like you can read about it and see the pictures on the side. So it's a good way to explore, at least my approach to art.
Like I said, I love your attention to detail, the fact that you're actually researching magic and putting all that. I mean, it shows in your art, right? Your art has all these details and all this like little elements. It really shows. I love the fact that you show so much attention to detail, and I think that that's really beautiful. That's really beautiful. But speaking of the book, right? So we've been mentioning all the things that we're excited for, all the things that are so fun, but what are some of the highest moments and maybe your lowest moments when working on the book? Maybe it can be anything, right? Just like what moments do you recall that this was like, yeah, I'm so excited that this was like, it just made you feel so happy, and one moment is like, oh my God, can this happen? So
Oh yeah, definitely. There are parts. The parts that I preferred probably. Okay, collecting all the illustrations for the book, it's not been very hard for me, because I have in the past years very well oh no, what's the word? Catalogs.
catalog, yes, you have a
Yeah,
catalog.
of all my illustrations. So it's been pretty easy, but there's been a part, and I'm actually like, it's something I never did, where it was required to get sketches and old stuff from my past, and it's been incredible, but it's been like, it looks like yesterday that I was sketching a lot on some. Nowadays I sketch less because I stay home a lot and I draw almost every day, and I don't go around with my sketchbook like I used to do in college. But when I had to search for the sketches, I went in this journey on rediscovering my old stuff. And not only that, I had to chronologically put all my sketchbook that were thrown in a library back at my parents. Like, I had to take all the sketchbook and chronologically set every sketchbook, and that's been a journey for me, because
Wow.
yeah, because like I had to, oh, wow, so this is in 2011 or something like that. So stuff like from ancient Egypt, like, and I saw a little bit of the growth that I went through, and I must say that's been an emotional moment. So that's definitely a high. I think the lowest for me in terms of the it's I am it's been the writing part. Like, I like to describe my process, but I'm not great at actually writing. I'm more of an illustrator. So like, I tried my best to make that part interesting, and I put out, but definitely my favorite part is the image part of the book.
Yeah, totally get you.
I'm an illustrator. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Looking back at your journey from where you started off, like, and seeing how far you've come, must have been very emotional, right? And like, that brings us actually to our next question. Now there are lots of artists, coming up, and they want to get to where you are, or maybe even higher, in their careers. But then sometimes it might feel not possible. It might feel like it's so far. When will I ever make an art book? That just can never happen. But like you said, you started off somewhere too, and eventually you're here. And sometimes we forget that we all started off somewhere. What advice do you have for artists who maybe are beginning their art career, or maybe just want to get into art but they don't know where to start? What general advice do you have for artists that are beginning?
I have a very simple advice. First off, I want to be inclusive of people that is more senior, which is for me very important, because often, more than often, the people that I feel like they have the hardest and struggle to start is people that is a little bit more advanced. And for advanced, I mean already 26, 27. People think that it's too late. So first advice, I don't think there is really, at least as far as I know, I don't know what's going to happen in next year, but so far I feel like there is no limit. You can start at any time. Yeah, for sure you need a backup, probably a little bit in a couple of years of backup, but like once you can manage to let's say to focus on art for 2 or 3 years, I feel like there is a chance to make it. The only the thing that can limit a person is mostly themselves at the end of the day. I think that there are a bunch of issues that I noticed that block people, and so my recommendation is to avoid making a work that is too scattered in general. So try to at least being consistent into whatever you want to do. And this brings me to the main point that is my go-to advice. Art, in my opinion, and I'm saying this from the point of view of a person that struggles and struggled every day on this, like everyone, art is about personality. It's 100% the greatest artists out there, better than me, worse than me, doesn't matter. They have a personality that shows through their piece. And the better their personality is, and by better doesn't mean necessarily good personality, it means stronger personality, defined personality in any possible way, even in an undefined way. Having a personality is what makes them them. And this is solving so many troubles and so many questions that I had during the time that I streamed, for example, where people ask me, how do you find your style? How do you get the followers? I don't know exactly every single one, but I think that what you want, and I think what every artist that is moderately recognizable out there did, is finding themselves a bit, working on themselves as a person. This is not mambo jumbo. This is literally what I think it's the main thing to do. Focusing on, technical skill for sure are important, but what is more important is knowing who you are and what you want. Once you have that, you can build consistency and then start a project or like a career. And I think that that can happen at any time. Like there is no time limit. There is no, but confusion, lack of personality, not knowing where you want to go. It's not that it's bad necessarily, but it's definitely gonna, in my opinion, slow down the process of realizing something, a body of work that people can recognize as XZY artist, artist Simz Art or whatever other artist, right? That's my advice is search more within. I think it's a personality path journey. Search your personality, work on yourself, work on what do I like, what do I want, what matters for me. For example, now I'm working on witches, right? It's not that I want to be a witch myself or something, but I like, for example, drawing. I like drawing objects. So in my drawings, there is a lot of object design, background, color choices, because I like, for example, using certain colors because I like the color grading in some movies. All the things that defines my personality, I try to put into my art. It's not that I search for a style. It's just that I try to express what I do like, who I am in my art, which I think is what I would recommend searching for everyone. So I think that you can, in fact, in art, usually a person says this is a masterpiece when they make a great artwork that represent them. But you can say also that an artist is immature, meaning that they are not mature enough. They are probably didn't find themselves yet in their first works. I feel like the maturity of an artist comes from their awareness of what they want, where they're trying to go. So my recommendation is to work not only on how to draw an eye, how to draw, that's definitely important. And it's an important aspect of a journey to learn the skills. But finding who you are, what you want, for me, it's been probably the most complicated anything that I work the most on. So take decisions that are, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that, I don't like this, I don't like that. Decide what you like, what you don't like, define yourself, and find what you actually do like.
I totally agree, especially in this era of like social media being so oversaturated with different types of content, and everyone is telling you do this, do that. If you want to grow on social media, do this. If you want to do that, and then you can just get so overwhelmed. I know I felt overwhelmed, and like you said, I really had to like sit down and ask myself, no, what do I want to do? What do I feel like is best for me? What do I genuinely want to do? And I think just asking myself those questions alone kind of made the fog in my head kind of clear, and everything just felt like I saw my direction again. So that's totally solid advice. Actually, we've come to the end of the interview. But before we go, do you have any last words to say? Any closing words?
Yeah, I think that believe in yourself for sure. Don't listen to doomers. Don't listen to people that tells you don't do that. It's just like believe that, like, have clear idea, believe in yourself, and yeah, believe in yourself. I think literally that's the only thing that if I didn't believe in myself, this would have never been possible. No one helped me in this career so far. I mean, they did at some point. The point is, I would have not been here if I wouldn't have believed, and I keep believing what I can do, because as much people as believes in you, you have to be the first person that is convinced that you are doing good, and that's the only way that allows you to also convince the others and convince yourself. So believe in yourself, definitely. I know that is a cliche, but it's the most true thing. If you don't believe, it's impossible. Like nobody's gonna make you give you success if you don't believe in what you're doing. I really don't think that can happen. That someone is like, hey, yo, you don't like anything you do? Perfect, you are our man. I think that you have to believe, especially in art, that is one of the probably hardest field that everybody knows. Art is also a meme, that you do art career and you go to work at retail, like after the art school and stuff like that. It's a classic. I've people told that to me. I've seen people actually not making it. It's a very hard field, and the only way to make it work is to start with conviction. Believe that you are good, that you can do it, and yeah.
I had so much fun talking with you today. I'm sure everyone listening probably learned a few things, picked a few things, and definitely I'm certain they're excited for the book as well. So yeah.